Hello and welcome to another of my film reviews. This is one of my films through time reviews. And in this episode, I'll be looking at the 1946 film A Matter of Life and Death, known in America as Stairway to Heaven. This is a fantasy romance film set in England during World War II. It was written, produced, and directed by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. So let's look at the two of those in a bit more detail. Michael Powell was born on the 30th of September in 1905. He started in the film industry in France in 1925, starting off just sweeping floors, fetching and carrying, and then moved on to doing stills photography. He also did a few small acting roles. In 1928, he moved back to England and he worked on the 1928 film Champagne and the 1929 film Blackmail by Alfred Hitchcock. Powell and Hitchcock stayed friends until Hitchcock's death. Powell went into partnership with American producer Jerry Jackson in 1931. Together, they made Quota Quickies, which were hour-long films needed to satisfy a legal requirement that British cinemas had to screen a certain number of British films. During this time, they made up to 7 films a year. Powell's first screen credit as a director was for Two Crowded Hours in 1931. Then, between 1931 and 36, he directed 23 films. In 1937, he made his first personal film, The Edge of the World. He gathered together a cast and crew and took them away to what was then an isolated part of the UK for a few months. And he ended up with a film that told the story he wanted and made great use of the location. On the strength of that film, he was hired by Alexander Calder in 1939, where he helped to save a film called The Spy in Black. This was where he first met Emmerich Pressburger. Emmerich Pressburger was born on the 5th of December 1902. He was a Hungarian-British screenwriter, director, and producer. He began his career as a journalist and moved to Berlin in 1926, working as a screenwriter. He fled the Nazis first to Paris and then to London, arriving in the UK in 1935. He was employed as a screenwriter by Alexander Calder, where he met up with Michael Powell while working on The Spy in Black. Working together as producers, writers, and directors, Pressburger and Powell, using the partnership name The Archers, made 19 feature films, many of which are regarded as classics. 4 of their films are in the BFI 100 list of favourite British films of the 20th century. The cast for this film is David Niven, Kim Hunter, Roger Livesey, Marius Goring, Raymond Massey, and Abraham Sophia. There are other people in the film, but they are the main characters. When the film was first cast, Marius Goring was offered the part of Conductor 71, but he wanted the lead role, Peter Carter. But Pressburger and Powell were set on David Niven playing that part, and so told Goring that the conductor role was the only choice, and if he didn't want it, they would offer it to Peter Ustinov instead. They went to Hollywood to find an actress for the American female lead, June. Kim Hunter was suggested to them by Alfred Hitchcock. She had stage experience and was under contract to David O. Selznick. There are also 2 interesting cameo appearances in the film. The first is that of Richard Attenborough as an English pilot, and the second is of Michael Trubshaw, who was a British Army officer during the war and was a friend of David Niven's. Matter of Life and Death was filmed in studios in Denham, Buckinghamshire, and on locations in Devon and Surrey. It cost an estimated £320,000 at the time. Due to how complex a production it was, there was an extensive pre-production period. The huge escalator that in the film links heaven to earth took 3 months to make. It had 106 steps that were 20 feet wide. One of the film's most memorable aspects is that all the scenes in heaven are in black and white, whilst the scenes on earth are in colour. This added to the complications, partly due to the mechanical processes involved, but also because There was a 9-month wait for film stock. Technicolor cameras were being used at the time by the American Army for training films. The film was chosen for the first ever Royal Film performance in November 1946, and it was released in America on the 25th of December 1946 under the name Stairway to Heaven. Now, this is a rough outline of the plot. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail. So it's set in 1945, and our hero, squadron leader Peter Carter, is flying a badly damaged Lancaster bomber over the English Channel. He's fully expecting to die. He's ordered his crew to bail out, and his parachute has been destroyed. The only radio operator receiving him is June at a US Air Force base on the coast of England. They talk, and he jumps from the plane with no parachute. He wakes up on a beach, and at first he thinks he's dead and in heaven, but then realizes that he's still alive and not far from the US Air Force base. He meets June and they fall in love. Conductor 71, the guide sent to take Carter to the other world, stops time and explains to Carter that he missed him due to the fog over the English Channel and that he must go with him to the other world. Peter Carter demands an appeal, and Conductor 71 goes to consult his superiors. When the conductor returns, he informs Carter that his appeal has been granted and he has 3 days to prepare his case. He can choose anyone as his defense counsel, but he has difficulty in picking one. Peter is diagnosed as having a brain injury and is hallucinating because of it. The doctor, Dr. Reeves, that diagnoses him, is killed while trying to find an ambulance that is late to take Carter to hospital for an urgent operation. Dr. Reeves' death allows Carter to call him as his defense counsel. In a massive amphitheatre, they hold the case, in which Reeves argues that Carter was given extra time on Earth through no fault of his own and has fallen in love, and that should take precedence over all else. The prosecutor is an American, Abraham Farlan, who hates the British for making him the first casualty of the American War of Independence. They call Carter and June to the stand, and Dr. Reeves tells her that she can only save Peter Carter by taking his place. She agrees and gets onto the stairway that leads to heaven. It halts suddenly as it starts to go up, and she runs back down to Peter Carter. Dr. Reeves says, "Nothing is stronger than the law in the universe, but on Earth, nothing is stronger than love." Okay. Let me start by saying that although I've used the term heaven, both Pressburger and Powell made a point of never using that word. They described it as the other world. In the introduction to both the film and the 1946 novelization of the story, they used this statement. "This is the story of two worlds, the one we know and another which exists only in the mind of a young airman whose life and imagination have been violently shaped by war. Any resemblance to any other world, known or unknown, is purely coincidental." This statement, along with other elements of the film, like the resemblance of the surgeon operating on Peter Carter to the judge, and the disappearance and then finding of a chess book, are shown as being proof that it's all in his subconscious and all in his mind. I'm not really that bothered about that side of things, really. I just have to say, I think this is as near perfect a film as I've ever seen. The idea and the story are brilliant. They work perfectly. The acting is completely excellent. Each character, even minor ones, are well developed, well written, and fully rounded. The effects are great, and overall, the film is just a fantastic film to watch. My overall opinion is to say, if you have seen this film, it's always worth rewatching. If you haven't, then I would recommend it to everyone. I personally think this is one of the greatest films of all time. So check it out. Thank you. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye.